And this exposure to people, the media, especially when you're not in comfortable position, I believe it builds emotional resistance and builds thick skin that transcends into other layers of life as well. And speaking about other area of life, one thing that we all have, and is one of the most important thing an entrepreneur can have, is his mindset. You're known for stacking the mindset all the way to success. What's the first brick that a person should lay, and how can mindset truly shape the destiny of an entrepreneur? Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Golden LLama Show, which is pure bliss and entertainment. We have today with us not a boss who's an experienced and seasoned entrepreneur with vast array of skills and experience. Hello, and thank you for
G'day.
being here.
Pleasure.
Let's go deep. You went from selling paper airplanes as a kid to launching 15 seven-figure businesses. So let me ask you this. What's the most unconventional lesson you learned from your potato-powered childhood that still influences your entrepreneurial mindset today?
Wow. Okay. So I think if I look back, my paper aeroplane business was my very first business. And I was 6 at the time when I launched that. I was 6 years old, living with my mum and my sister, single parent, and we were eating a ridiculous amount of potatoes, like every night. And it became excessive. And I got to the stage, I went and stayed with my cousin for a week, and he lived on a farm. And I said, "Hey, Jerem, by the end of this week, I want to make some money. I do not want to eat another bloody potato. I can't look at another potato again." So I said, "Jerem, we're going to sit down. We're going to work out how, at 6 year age, how we're going to make some money." So we said, probably making money is something that we don't know much about, but we looked around the farm. He lived on a farm and in the middle of nowhere. And we looked and we found all these beer bottles that his dad was pretty keen on. He is a bit of a beer fan. And on the top of these beer bottles were the caps. And we looked at them, we go, "Hey, look, those little round caps, they look like 20-cent coins." And at the genius knowledge that you have as a 6-year-old, we're going, "All right, that could be a coin. Maybe we can make that into a coin," because at 6 years old, we thought that's how you actually make money, right? It's a physical process. So we got these little bottle caps, wrote 20 cents on them, and we sat back thinking, "Oh yeah, we're on the way now. We've made it." And then after a few minutes, we realized, "No, that's not going to work. I don't think anyone will accept our little 20-cent bottle cap coins." So I said, "Jerem, mate, we've got to work something else out here. What are we going to do? What are you good at that we can make money out of?" And we scratched our heads and he said, "Oh, look, I can kick a footy pretty well. I'm pretty good at football." And just as a translation, in Australia, a footy is this weird looking thing that's oblong shape and they kick it around the ground. So he said, "I can kick this footy pretty well." I said, "Mate, I just can't think how we're going to make any money out of that." And so we scratched our heads a little bit further and I said, "Look, I'm the best in my class at making paper aeroplanes. Why don't we start a paper aeroplane business?" So we thought, fantastic. He was pretty good at a paper aeroplane. We made up a whole bunch of them, some red ones and different colored paper ones, and drew some little cool things on it. We set up a little trestle table out the front of this farm, out the front of a paddock in the middle of nowhere. And we sat back and we thought, yep, we're on the way to business success here. And we sat there and we waited, and then we waited, and there was no cars anywhere to be seen. And I turned to him after a while and said, "Hey, Jeremy, I think I've got it. I think I know what the problem is here." I said, "We don't have a big enough bucket to put all the money in that we're going to make." So he took off down the back of the paddock, found this wheelbarrow, got rid of all the manure out of the wheelbarrow, brought it back and said, "All right, we're ready to make money." So we're very excited then. And at that stage, we waited another hour and a half. So we were there for about 2.5 hours in our first business. Over that time, there was two cars that came past, and we realized that neither of them had the ability to stop and buy a paper airplane. So we learned a bunch of lessons from that business, not making any money. One of the lessons, and this is in reference to what your question was, what have we learned and brought forwards? One of the things, it's a basic thing, it's not too deep, but it's just a basic thing in business of having signage. We realized that in business, you have to have signage. And now in all my businesses, I've probably gone a little bit too overboard, and you can barely see the business for the amount of signage that's in most of them. So that was one lesson we learned. Signage is really important. Second lesson we learned out of that was apparently you need humans to be able to sell products too. Yeah, who would have known?
I wouldn't expect.
Yeah, but it's these little bits of insight that can really make a
Yeah,
difference in life, right?
yeah, they do.
So those are the sort of things now I really focus on. I like to go to places which already have established customer bases of the exact sort of customer that we're looking for. So that just really fast tracks the whole process. So those are the two sort of little nuggets that I took out of my first business.
Always easier to sell to a customer that is already informed instead of schooling him what is the actual issue that he's having. But I'm gonna be honest with you, all I could hear and understand is that I should not take any coins from you, because most likely that is not even a coin.
Yes, beware of coins. Yeah, you don't want to go down that track.
No. But you mentioned that you have been growing up on a diet that have been heavy on potatoes. So I assume that you learned to stretch every resource that you have. Can you share us your best potato to profit strategy that any entrepreneur can use to make the best of what they have?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess that applies to a lot of everything that I do in all the businesses. You really want to conserve cash when you're in business, really only invested in areas that you can see significant upside to. I've been in businesses where I've lost tons of money, like ridiculous amounts, almost to the level that could have been quite scary as outcomes. So they were very infrastructure heavy. So they were things like restaurants. I'd built 3 different restaurants at one stage, and then we started losing just tens of thousands of dollars on a monthly basis from it, and it was just very scary. So now all the takeaways that I get from that, and again, it's fantastic to go through all these learning curves. And the key, I think, is not just to throw the towel in, but to use it to help you go forwards and progress to the next business and do it better. So one of those things that I really have focused on now is minimizing infrastructure. And a lot of the stuff we do is online. So it's quite easy to do without too many investments and too much capital. It's just when you've got physical infrastructure that you tend to have to put a lot of risk into and a lot of money into. So I try and minimize those sort of these days.
Yeah, local infrastructure does generate costs, but you're talking online, and you cannot really talk online without this new big thing that is changing the landscape completely, and everyone wants to jump that train, and that train is called AI, which you could use to benefit on so many different layers. And I know that you've integrated cutting edge AI into your business, into your growth strategies. If you could ask your AI one question, how to boost your business empire, what would it be? And how do you see AI transforming the entrepreneurial landscape?
It's so massive now. And they say you're not going to be, your job's not going to be at risk with AI directly, but the understanding is that you're not going to be replaced by AI, but you are going to be replaced by someone who utilizes AI. Yeah. So that's the going concept at the moment. We use it a heap, and everyone I recruit in my across the platforms, I always recruit now with people with that experience. It is a little bit of a challenge because people are just learning it on the fly. So they're not really equipped, but I love to look into ways of just making business and life so much easier. Funny enough, I'm really huge in the startup space in businesses. So we're often starting new businesses on a regular basis or joint venturing with people who have startups. This is a little example of how amazing AI is. I've been wanting to start a business in coffee barista training. So train people in barista because I've been involved in cafes and restaurants for a while. I feel that there's a really good little niche in it. So last Tuesday morning, I woke up 5 a.m. and I said, I'm going to launch this business today. I hadn't done anything to start the business. So I sat down, got my best friend ChatGPT out, who's always talks back nicely to me, which is wonderful. And we had a good chat and I said, look, let's get this business up and running. And so from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., I thrashed out the concept, the strategy, the plan of the business, the foundations. And by 7 a.m., I'd sent the concept to my team. By 9 a.m., we'd built the web page. And by about 9:30, we were ready to go with signage, logos, and everything. I hadn't got any customers, obviously, at that stage, but basically in half a day with ChatGPT and AI and the graphic design DALI 3, which is the design side of it, we're able to put everything in there to come out with the basic foundations of a business, which was just freaking exciting. Be able to turn around, create a structure and implement it within half a day now. AI is just my best friend. It's just phenomenal. So I know there's a lot of people scared about it. And sure, there is that side of the unknown that we don't know what it's going to do and what it's capable of. But in the meantime, we can just use it so efficiently to speed up so many aspects of the business. So I'm a big fan.
Yeah, AI is truly a powerhouse when it comes to back office jobs like streamlining or automation.
Mm.
And to be honest, I do feel like in the business world, the trend has changed so fast that there is this fear of missing out. And when you're just running, it might not be enough because the society promotes this hustle and grind culture, which is not always beneficial. And it is not always the right road to success because, in the end, we're all quite different. And one way is not worse or better than the other. And many times it's about what you learn through the journey instead of focusing on the goal. But what a goal it was to start a business in half a day.
Mm.
It's truly a groundbreaking. I know that your Guinness record in taking an ice bath, that is no small feat. But what's the biggest entrepreneurial iceberg that you faced? And how did you navigate around it without sinking your ship?
Like I say, when I was in the restaurants, that was very close to having a deep. And I think one of the biggest lessons and how I navigated around that was understanding that the business wasn't successful and swallowing that as a pill for someone who's so passionate about business. That was a big smack in the face. It was just like, hey, you don't know everything and you're not good at everything. And you have to understand that. And that's a big lesson. And there was huge ego things involved there because I just come out of the back of setting up a little group of health shops and a supplement brand that I took nationally and sold that for 7 figures. And it was, like when you're in that stage, you think, oh, I've done that. I can do anything. But reality is totally different. And it has a great way of giving you a good slap in the face and saying, actually, you've got a lot more lessons to learn here. So that was really interesting being in that field, learning those lessons, being able to swallow that pill and say, okay, we need to pivot because this is not working. And having that in front of your face and checking reality, understanding that the whole game's not over. It's just that little aspect. And what else can we learn from it and grow from it and apply to future life and business? Because I feel too many people will give something a go, say entrepreneurial, they'll give it a go, they may crash and burn, and then they say, oh, that wasn't for me. instead of recognizing some amazing lessons that they could get out of it and do things differently going forwards. And I just think that's a crime where you end up stealing opportunities from yourself. So I feel if you can actually have a bit more clarity around where you're going, what you're learning from it, find where the benefit is, where the lesson is, and then move forwards and apply it to other areas, it's pretty powerful.
Business seems like a game, and there are things that you need to learn before you go to the next level. And especially when either the business is diverse or you're just starting, there are so many different things that you need to learn in order to thrive that sometimes it's overwhelming and people choose the easy pathway out instead of embracing who they are, embracing the emotions. And this is where I suck. And they're gonna talk to them like they don't suck or this is the market fault or everyone else fault instead of getting better, instead of using that feedback to see this is my sticking point. I'm gonna work on that. And if I invest time and energy into that, I will get better. Let's just change a topic for a few mere seconds. You're a Guinness World Record holder for ice bath. How cool is that?
Literally, yeah, I'd say very cold, about 5 degrees. Yep.
So if I were to challenge you right here, right now, then ice bath showdown, who do you think would last longer? And what's the secret to staying calm when you're literally freezing?
Don't know, but when I work it out, I'll let you know. But look, we went into the Guinness World Records this year, and it wasn't just for clarity. It wasn't for the coldest ice bath or the longest ice bath, but it was for the biggest amount of people doing an ice bath at 4 or 5 degrees in the world. So we had about, I think it was just under 600 people doing ice baths at one time. But the reason I do ice baths is really specific, and I do a lot of cold water therapy. So I love going down every morning. This morning it was, I don't know, maybe 5 degrees out there. And I'll go down to the ocean and just jump into the ocean. It's a fantastic way to wake up and really get into the day. But what I love most, I've created a concept of dopamine optimization in business. I don't know that anyone else has got their head around this yet, but what I've been doing, I've been working in lots of different industries. Background is in health. And one of the things I love doing is to spike dopamine levels on a regular, consistent basis throughout the day. And I do it purely for business purposes. Because what I find is the more we can stimulate dopamine, a neurotransmitter in your brain, if we can stimulate it for longer and more frequently, you're feeling good. It's your party happy hormone in your brain. And the more we can stimulate dopamine production on a regular basis, it's fantastic for business because we're in a better mood. We're more mentally focused. We have a higher vibrational energy as well. You speed up your energy, your life, things are exciting, and you seem to become a little bit more magnetic. You seem to attract more good situations to you. And it's pretty obvious. It's not too much woo-woo in that, because what the logistical steps are, if you're a happy person and you're loving life, it's just natural that people like to be around that. You become more magnetic, and it's obvious, right? People want to be around people that make them feel good and happy. The more we can stimulate dopamine in the workplace, the more deals we do, the more people want to hang out with us. And it's just a natural progression for business to take place. So I love the concept of ice baths and shocking the body on a regular basis because it's capable of stimulating dopamine from anywhere, they reckon, between 2% up to about 500%. So all this hormone just gets pumped in your body. You feel fantastic. And then it creates some positive momentum throughout the day. That's why I do ice baths and cold plunging. Nothing to do with the health benefits, although it has a huge amount of health benefits, but I just use it purely for business purposes.
I love that. I think the more happiness you have, the more happiness you can give. And then it starts this snowball effect when just everything falls into place. If you're tired at the tip of being burned out, you're not gonna see all the opportunities that they are because you're perceiving reality that, oh my God, I'm so tired. I just want to be done with it. It's literally like you're living in survival state. So let's talk about the dopamine boosting. Do you have any daily rituals or biochemical hacks that you would recommend to achieve peak performance?
Yeah, I love bringing that into business. So my background's in health and a little bit of competitive sport in the early days in tennis. And there's a big connection with mindset and achieving outcomes. And what I love to do in business, I use every tool at our disposal. So things like the cold water therapy again is just to get me in the state of good mood, happy vibrationally, energetic side of things. So there's a bunch of things that stimulate dopamine production, and that's just one of them. But the key, I think, in my day is to have dopamine coming in on a regular, consistent basis from naturally produced events, not from drugs and artificial stimulation. It's when you utilize artificial medications and also recreational pursuits, you go up and down. So you get this big boost followed by a really bad crash. And I don't like the idea of that. I like trying to get that vibrational frequency high and consistently awesome. So throughout the day, there's a bunch of things you can do to stimulate the dopamine levels. Cold water is pretty intense and a lot of people don't like doing it, but it really elevates it high. But there's a lot of other things like getting a bit of sunlight every day. 15, 20 minutes of sunlight can boost dopamine around 20%. Listening to good music. Music is a mood elevator as long as it's uplifting music. That can stimulate dopamine by about 15 to 25%. Other things that are more intense, things like endurance sport. So anything that really puts a big physical strain on the body really elevates the moods. I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day and we were doing some ice baths and saunas together. And he was saying, oh, I'm addicted to endurance running. And I said, that's the dopamine. And he said, I just feel so good. Once I've done a marathon, I'm just in this massive high. I said, mate, that's exactly it. This is the sort of thing that elevates the mood. So these are quite intensive sort of events that can make you feel pretty amazing, but they're pretty intense. So they're hard to factor into everyday life, but you can use the more intensive ones if you're in a real rut. And if you just need to break out of that rut and create a bit more positive momentum, you can do the higher intensity dopamine producing events like the endurance running or the ice baths. And then you follow it up by a bunch of other little frequently utilized ones like exercise on a more tame level. Sex is a good one for elevating dopamine. I always recommend frequently utilizing that throughout the day. But other things like exercise, meditation, relaxation, stress relief, any of these things are great. Intermittent fasting, one of my businesses that I have is a weight loss program, and we use ketogenic diet for that. And when you do that with a bit of intermittent fasting, that also is a stimulant of dopamine, and it keeps you really very consistent instead of the ups and downs that we get with blood sugar level fluctuations and mood elevations and crashes. Going into ketosis is a fantastic way to keep really stable dopamine and energetic levels. So all these are great little tools that you can bring into your daily life. Your health will benefit from it. But most specifically, because I just love business and I talk about it all day, every day, and I do it 24/7, then I use these as tools just to boost my business and my outcomes within that area.
I'm intrigued because obviously you can also get dopamine rush from finishing activities,
Mm.
for example, from your to-do list. And then my question would be, how do you balance it out so it does not impact your sleep when you're not able to wind down and just take rest?
Yeah, good question. So dopamine is a little bit different to adrenaline and cortisol. So if the stress hormones are stimulants and they're going to keep you awake, but serotonin, other neurotransmitters, are quite useful for sleep. So we're not going to get a stimulated response out of them like you would if you had a cup of coffee or Coca-Cola or something with caffeine in it, where it just takes you on a big adrenal kick and then you go up and then you can't sleep. So utilizing all those dopamine producing things like exercise, fantastic for sleep. We wear out our physical body, we use up the adrenaline in our system, and it will enhance sleep. And sleep is another thing in itself. It is essential for dopamine production. So if you're burning the candles at both ends and wearing yourself out and not sleeping and not nourishing the nervous system through effective sleep, then you're just in a downward spiral again. So yeah, you got to be careful there.
Yeah, it's a highway to hell. But I understand that diet has a big impact. And you've created a world first global total weight loss program. What unique twist would you suggest for creating the ultimate diet plan that stands out in the crowded, saturated market?
Yeah, I guess two areas that I focus on is a business diet. So I've actually created a diet that's specific for things like improving mental focus and clarity and dopamine production and energy to improve productivity. So that's one area. The other area is weight loss that I focus on. And I've been running weight loss programs for years as a naturopath. So I like to use keto. I find it incredibly effective personally. I'm in ketosis every day. I actually have this little device that I keep on my desk. It's a little keto breath analysis machine, and you can check your ketone levels. And so ketones are fantastic. Keto diets are brilliant. They take out the big source of fuel, which everyone relies on, their sugary foods, their breads, pastas, rice, potatoes. Back to my youth, I'm happy to get rid of my potatoes. So they're out of the diet. And all these things are really high sugar for the body. And what goes up must come down. So you get this up and down, which is horrible for the body and not good for the endocrine system. And it's a big cause of diabetes and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and heart disease, all these problems. So keto is fantastic because we take out this big form of sugar stimulation and we start utilizing other sources of fuel, which the body then goes into fat tissue, breaks that down, and ketones are released into the body. And these little ketones float around the body, then they're fantastic for the brain function. So that they help with memory and concentration and focus. The keto program was originally created to treat kids with epilepsy, and it has phenomenal results on kids with epilepsy. And now there's a lot of clinical trials that are going into Parkinson and Alzheimer's disease and heart disease and all these amazing things that you can treat without any cost. You can change your diet. And another thing I love about keto programs is that you don't get hungry. And when you're hacking your biochemistry of your body, you go into a state where you coast and you don't get hungry, you don't get cravings, and you feel amazing. So I love using that as part of the business building diet as well as losing weight. So it's really effective for both areas.
It makes you wonder because once you switch from eating mostly carbs or regular diets to eating mostly fats, you might realize that many people actually use foods as a coping mechanism. What is your number one tip for people that would to embrace keto way of living?
Yeah, cool. And that's so true. There's so much related to emotional eating that people don't realize what they're doing, and it becomes habitual where you get stressed, you eat, you get stressed, you eat. Breaking that pattern, and again, dopamine is fantastic for doing that because it just makes you feel happy. So breaking the pattern is really important for emotional eating, and we can do that by eating keto, by improving the moods, becoming more aware, because half the issue is you get into this negative cycle of just binge eating or eating crap and then from emotional situations. And it's just cyclical. You get hungry, you go to those foods that give you that quick hit of dopamine, because that's another way of stimulating dopamine. But the problem is, again, what goes up must come down in the way of blood sugar levels. So you end up with this horrific up and down. mood swings and energy fluctuations and headaches and all sorts of negative things that arrive from that. So there's a better way of doing it if you can stabilize and just coast with keto. Yeah.
It's similar when you go out with the boys on Friday night. You're going to have some beers, you're going to have some fun, but guess what? Comes Saturday day, you're all going to regret that, because if there's going to be up, there's going to be down.
Correct.
Now,
Yeah.
you made some waves on Australian Shark Tank since you've launched 3 restaurants. Now, if you were pitching a new unconventional idea today, how would you sell it to panel of investors?
When I'm doing any business, creating anything from scratch, and whether it's pitching it to investors or which mostly I do myself now rather than involving others, but or when you're pitching something, it's always about where the problem is. Where does the problem lie? Identifying a problem, and the bigger the problem, the better the solution and the better the business potential has. I think if you can really clearly articulate problem, and if you can articulate that problem as well as the people who are experiencing that problem, then there's a good chance that you can create a solution that resonates with that customer base. In other words, if you have, for example, one of my businesses is called Tommy Sugo, and we manufacture pasta, which is really strange considering we do keto.
Keto.
But life's a balance, right? So with Tommy Sugo, we have a lot of people, they just busy, their life's so busy, they just want quick, easy solutions. So if I can articulate that as a outcome, okay, look, I understand life's crazy. You're picking up the kids, you're dropping them to soccer, to football, you're cooking dinner, you're running the home, you're keeping your husband happy, all these sort of things that my ideal target client goes through. If I can articulate to them an understanding of that problem, then there becomes a lot more trust for the solution, because they go, oh yeah, he gets me. So he understands. So automatically you build that rapport, you get that understanding, and they think, wow, if you understand my problem, clearly you're going to have a fantastic solution. I will go for whatever you recommend because you get me. So that's in any business. When you're launching a business, it's just finding that problem, articulating a solution or articulating an understanding of that problem, and then working a couple of steps back and saying, how can we best create a solution that identifies what the problem is and an understanding of that problem. So that's it in a nutshell. That's the basics of where I
I like this thesis from marketing that you should speak the language of your prospects, but sell them your solution. And you should understand them to the point that they feel like you read their diary. And obviously, the sales is the last process. The first step is actually marketing. And you have been pretty successful with it as well. You mastered the art of zero cost marketing, and you raked up over 100,000 in free advertising. Can you share some of your wildest stunts, how you pulled off, and what kind of marketing magic would you create if you had to do it all over again?
Yeah, I love the idea of free marketing, zero cost marketing, because at heart, I'm a bit of a tight ass. So that really helps me to move the business forwards without spending a lot of money. Yeah, we've done some pretty interesting little guerrilla marketing tactics over the years. One of my mentors in property is a guy who is phenomenal in body language and mindset and negotiation. And what he taught me was whenever you're doing any sort of business stunt or marketing or putting yourself out there in general in potentially an uncomfortable way, there's always the discomfort followed by the reward. The greater the discomfort, the greater the reward generally is the process. We were back in the UK. This was probably around 2009, 2010. We were in the property business and we decided to go ugly because ugly is what cuts through. Everyone in their marketing these days is professional, above professional, beyond professional, and then higher in professional. And it all ends up saying the same message, and it all ends up in just a cloud of gray. It's all the same. Nothing stands out. So we like to, in some industries, we like to pull it back and say, okay, what's really going to stand out? So we got the big yellow plaque, these boards, and we put an A-frame front and back. And we got an ugly permanent marker, and we wrote on, "Buy my house," our phone number and the price details. We restructured a sale of a property too. We were in the industry of making it very easy for home buyers to get onto the market, which means we could sell properties really, really quickly. So the easier you could make it for a buyer coming in, the easier it would be for a seller going out. So we did these placards up. We walked across Tower Bridge in London, which is the iconic bridge that you see people going across. We did this with these yellow placards. It was ugly. The handwriting was messy. We had spelling mistakes on the board, and we had literally people stopping in the streets. We had double-decker buses in London pull over in the middle of their rides, and the drivers were hanging out and saying, "Hey, what are you doing? What's going on?" And we got picked up by some media, and that went around the world, ended up in Qatar on the front page of their newspapers, and all sorts of interesting things that came out of it. But it was really interesting knowing your discomfort level. So knowing what your number is, by putting yourself into a level of discomfort, what is your possible outcome going to be at the end of that? So being aware of your numbers, for example, if I was to be really embarrassed and really uncomfortable walking along that bridge, and if that was going to generate me $10, then I probably wouldn't do it. But knowing your numbers, and what we knew is that we knew every time we sold a property, that would be about $40,000 in the bank. So we are that level of so those sort of things is knowing your numbers gives you an amazing clarity on, for 40 grand, would you go out there and look like a bit of a knob? I would. So knowing your numbers is a fantastic way of ascertaining, is your effort and discomfort that you're going to put yourself worth it? That's what it comes down to.
So all of those mistakes were actually on purpose, so you can get some eyeballs turning into your direction. And this exposure to people, the media, especially when you're not in comfortable position, I believe it builds emotional resistance and builds thick skin that transcends into other layers of life as well. And speaking about other area of life, one thing that we all have, and is one of the most important thing an entrepreneur can have, is his mindset. You're known for stacking the mindset all the way to success. What's the first brick that a person should lay, and how can mindset truly shape the destiny of an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I love mindset because no one's taught it at school. So you have to discover it, and life gives you a whole bunch of lessons if you're aware and you listen to it. Most people go through life without actually learning the lessons and moving forwards. They understand the concept of everything is happening to them out of their control and in an unfair manner. If you can flip that and understand that we have an amazing ability to dictate how we perceive every event in life. For some reason, we're taught specific ways of responding and reacting to bad events in life. Whatever the tragic trauma is, we're always told or we naturally fall to a specific response to that event. Let me give you an example. This is an extreme event, and I'm not saying that you should respond this way, but I just want to propose the question of, wouldn't it be amazing if it was different? If someone really close to you was to pass away, the natural response is trauma, hurt, pain, all these emotional things. Now, how do those emotional responses benefit you moving forwards in life? Are they beneficial and constructive, or are they detrimental and hold you back? What if, and I'm just proposing a question, what if we could decide and change the way we see that event in our life? Could you set yourself up for a better level of success if we re-engineered our response to that negative event? So in other words, someone dies and you're really upset and you stop your whole life, you put it on hold for years because you can't get over this trauma. Clearly that's a terrible, terrible event. But who is to say that we have to respond that way? And in fact, in some Eastern countries and religions, they interpret death as completely different. They almost celebrate the event. So, what if there was a way that we could choose how we interpret every terrible event and we create a lesson from it and we create a benefit that's going to help us move forwards in life? How much more efficient and effective would that play out in your future life? So what really excites me is that there is no rule book on this stuff. We can tweak, change, pivot the way that we respond to anything and stack it in our favor. And I love doing that in business and in life, and understanding that we have a massive choice on how we interpret any event. And why not stack it in our favor? That's going to help us move forward. That's going to help us help more people out there. That's going to get better, more positive responses and outcomes. So that really excites me, that stuff.
I get you. Like seeing the world through negative lenses is drinking poison and somehow thinking it would benefit you. Now, you are known for blending business acumen with generous serving of dad jokes. If I could ask you for your best dad joke with a hidden business lesson, what would it be?
Now, with dad jokes, it's very hard to put on the spot. They're more reactive than responsive. But yeah, look, I think the whole comedy thing and making people feel good is so important in business in general and in life. You want to be around people that you want to be around because they make you feel good and they uplift you. But I love to break tension with comedy. And the way I figure it, even if the other person doesn't laugh, if I get a laugh out of my own joke, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So if I'm in a more happy, jovial mood and I laugh at my own jokes, which I always, then generally I'm going to be in a better mood. People are going to, they'll benefit from it. Even if my jokes aren't funny, they will benefit because it's contagious. Happiness, it's like yawning. You yawn, someone else yawn. And it's like happiness. If your energy is high enough, you'll bring people along that journey with you. I love the idea of using jokes in and being a bit silly in business and in life, and pretending that you're in a, particularly when you're in a really serious meeting and you say it with a really serious look on your face, and then you just come out with this stupid, crazy saying, and then everyone, it takes a minute to register because you're so there focused on how serious everything is, and then you pull out this ridiculous scenario and people go, oh yeah. And then there's that whole break of tension, and then you reconnect and there's much more rapport straight after that. So yeah, I love being a bit of an idiot when it comes to mixing it up a bit like that.
Not taking yourself too serious. I think it's a great advice to live the life because you're not really attached to the process or results. And then the results or the process can really get moving because you're not interfering with it. And talking about processes and goals, you've already achieved so much. I'm sure you already have another adventure on the horizon. So, what exciting new ventures or projects are you planning to launch next? And how do you see them changing the game in the business world?
One of the things I'm passionate about is training kids in entrepreneurial mindset and skill set. When I was on Shark Tank, that was one of the things that I got out of that. The lessons that I learned from that was that there needs to be more of this sort of stuff in the world, particularly with kids. I know my kids, the schooling that they get has no interaction with business and entrepreneur and financial sort of literacy. So we're actually setting up a training for schools that allows kids to get a dose of that mindset and The goal is to bring out kids that are entrepreneurial in nature, in mindset, that they can put their energy into things like creating their own business instead of being on a device 24/7. Put their skills and their energy and their creative juices into something that actually has a meaning, that can help people, that can help them as well. So we're just literally introducing a entrepreneurial concept for schools that we will hope to go global. At this stage, we're setting it up for Australia, and then we want to introduce it to the US and to the UK, etc. But I just feel that kids are just so underutilizing, are so underskilled in those areas of business and mindset and entrepreneurialism that it takes ages to learn it when you've left school. But if there was a foundation there that would expose it, that's what we're all about. So that's one of the projects I'm working on right now. There's a bunch of other things, but that's one that's really exciting me right now.
I like that. The sooner you plant the seed to the soil, the more time it has to grow. And talking about people that want to grow and are inspired by your journey and want to learn more or collaborate, where they can find you, connect with the wisdom of Nathan Baws.
I love people to join us. We're just setting up, one of the other things I'm setting up right now is a monthly free meeting that we do. And you just bring along any of your business hurdles. You're not growing your business as quickly as you want to, all growth related problems. So bring it, any of those issues, how to grow your business. And we're literally setting it up now. So if you want to reach out through nathanbaws.com, that's a website that you can just pop your details down. And then once we have those meetings on a regular basis, come and join it. Doesn't matter where you're from around the world, as long as you can wake up at the appropriate time. We've got so many cool things that we love doing. And as I say, I just like nerding out about this stuff. I don't go out on Friday, Saturday night. I just talk about business all the time. And yeah, if you're like-minded, come and hang out. Let's have some nerdy business fun together.
Amazing. Those links are below the video, so make sure to click them and attend one of Nathan's masterclass. And as always, thank you all for listening and stay tuned for another episode.